We're now live. I'm going to just share this again. So,
I'll retweet it here.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, everyone. Thanks, everyone who's hopping on. Got some UConn fans here in Connecticut representing the local teams here. We got Yankees, Red Sox, Mets. Figure give us something to talk about in the off season here as what are we, a week and a half now, or unless you're mad, a week into your baseball season.
6 days, yeah.
But I think it's been a week and a half here, and we all already have some strong feelings on our teams here. I think if there's anything about baseball for being such a long season, we tend to be fans that jump into hot takes right away a week in here. So again, I'm Jared Collar, host Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast, big time Yankees fan here. So I'll be representing the Yankees here, but we'll go around quickly. Everyone wants to share their team. Steven, you go.
Hi, I'm Steven Sanzari. I'm at Gamble Crazies on Twitter. Diehard Red Sox fan. I was born into it. We have season tickets, and I just love talking Red Sox baseball.
Matt Netchie, UConn Netch on Twitter. I'm a disgruntled Mets fan who was also born into it, except most of my relatives have become Yankee fans and didn't stay born into it. So I'm here for the tribe.
Matt, we could start with you because I feel like your team had pretty high expectations for a Mets team heading into the season. What have been your thoughts so far 6 days into the season? I know it's kind of been a roller coaster of emotions for your Mets so far.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like going into this year was a win. We have new ownership, Steve Cohen, huge upgrade. They spent money. He said, trust everyone. He was going to get the Lindor thing done. He got it done, right? So I can't get too angry with Lindor, even though he's had a somewhat slow start because I'm stuck with him for 10 years. So biggest issue, like two things. Michael Conforto has been killing me. And the fact that the Mets didn't sign George Springer because they wanted to potentially pay him $200+ million freaks me out. And the fact that they're 2-3 and two of the losses are games that Jacob deGrom threw basically Cy Young caliber starts.
Yeah.
1 earned run. So 2 earned runs, I think, over 14 innings. I mean, that's your ace. They should be 4-1 at a minimum right now. So very frustrating. It's kind of been typical Mets. They don't have someone that's a clutch hitter, which again, it's not like Springer's numbers are dramatically better than Conforto's, but he was a guy that wins and gets clutch hits, and that's what they've been missing. Yeah. So it's been a frustrating 5 games for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely on the DeGrom front. You know, even as a Yankees fan, I love watching DeGrom go out there whenever he's starting. He's so much fun to watch, just dominant out there. And and it's tough to see it just start after start kind of fall by the wayside there and his efforts get wasted. Steven, tell me your thoughts on the Sox so far this year, because I know you guys had the 0-3 start. It's kind of been, I think for all three of us, we've experienced roller coaster starts here.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of that first weekend against Baltimore, I mean, it's been great so far for the Red Sox. They've won 6 straight in a row. They swept Tampa Bay, and then they swept Baltimore this weekend. It's so far, I mean, so good. Many Red Sox fans were expecting a very bad team. Obviously, they had a poor season last year with the shortened season, but I mean, look, you got a lineup that consists of guys like JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Devers. I mean, I just can't. Me personally, going into the season, I couldn't see them being a really bad team. I don't think they're a World Series contender, or maybe they might be a borderline playoff team. But I think this team is going to shock a lot of people, and I don't know. I just think it's just going to be a solid team and a fun team to watch throughout the year.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you guys have an interesting team, and not really sure what to expect from them night in and night out. It's going to definitely be an interesting game-by-game experience for you guys.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially when it comes to pitching, I think there's a lot of question marks, both in the bullpen and in the starting rotation.
Yeah, and from a Yankees perspective, I think it has to be a really frustrating start to the season. I was a little lower on this team than some people heading into the season. I think it's kind of proved itself early on here. It's a team that kind of just hits home runs or nothing. They've really struggled with runners in scoring position. It's just been painful to watch. Like I'm someone that's dialed in. I'm always wanting to watch every pitch, but so far this season, there have been times where I just don't even want to watch this team, the way they play. It's been tough. Aaron Hicks, I hated that signing from the day it happened. He's been brutal in the 3-hole. So Matt, we share some outfielders that some outfield frustration there. At least you guys don't have to play Tropicana. That's my least favorite stadium to have to watch a game at. And the Yankees were there this past weekend. Steven, do you guys play them there yet, or you guys were at Fenway against them, right?
Yeah, we the series at Fenway.
Yeah, but no, Tropicana is my least favorite place to watch. Team's struggling. It's just a combination of a bunch of bad things happening this weekend for the Yankees. But Matt, go to you. I know you talked a little bit about Conforto. I feel like we have to touch on the game from the other day where he had the nice lean in there. What were your thoughts on the whole situation there?
Again, I'll take what I can get, but it was a strike, right? I mean, he should have been strike 3, and that's been the real frustrating thing for him. I mean, they'll take what they can get, but he's a super streaky player. So he'll go 0 for 18, and then he'll go 20 for 30, and that's why his numbers end up pretty decent. But that pitch is a perfect example. He was looking at that like it was a really inside pitch, and it was a strike, no question. So he's just not seeing the ball well. And again, that's been the frustrating part is it's not and Alonso's actually been better to start off, thank God, and thank God for Dominic Smith. But it's not like he's being thrown just trash because he's got no one behind him. He's getting pitches to hit, and he's just swinging through the ball. So, but I would say this: the Mets. I'm 39, so I've been alive theoretically for one World Series, although I think I was asleep when it happened. But, right when I was at UConn, it was during the 2000 team, so they were great. 2015, a couple years ago, or God, it was more than a couple years ago, was awesome. But we've lost so many stupid games to the Marlins that have kept us out of the playoffs or screwed us. I did not feel it at all. I mean, it is what it is. Definitely. I don't get the point of replay if they can't go back and look at things like that. I mean, it was clearly a strike. But I think there's been really good press on it. The Mets booth, in my opinion,
they were awesome.
Yeah, they're on it, right? Darling and Hernandez don't hold back. Gary Cohen's awesome. So I thought they handled that appropriately. But you know what? If they make the playoffs by a game, maybe people will talk about it. If they miss it by more than that or make it by more than that, we'll forget about it. But it's kind of been a very small sample of what the season's been, just remarkably frustrating because of key at-bats that he has.
Yeah, I think what you said on replay really hits home for me. Baseball replay has to be probably the most frustrating replay in all of sports for me. They'll spend 20 minutes to review if a finger slid off the base as the guy tries to steal second, and if it comes off for a millisecond, he's out. Yet something like that in the game the other day, they don't do anything about, really.
Well, with that, and it's not even you've seen it, where a guy turns his shoulder into it.
Yeah.
It plunked. You have to really maybe the wind blew into his elbow and flap, but it was a question. It was very questionable, but
yeah,
it is what it is. They won the game, and otherwise they'd be 1-4 right now. So
yeah. Steven, I think one of the big takeaways or things I was looking for in the Red Sox this year was going to be if JD Martinez could bounce back. And clearly today, pretty much the whole season so far, he's been off to a tear. What are your thoughts on him? Because I feel like he's a big piece for their offense there. If he's clicking, the team's probably in a good spot.
Well, maybe it has to do with the iPad. Obviously, they had the replay restrictions last year with the iPads and what they could and couldn't look at with everything going on. But I mean, he is on a tear right now. I mean, 3 home runs today, 4 on the season, or 5 on the season, actually. And I mean, he's such a key piece. I mean, we look at all those 2000 teams with Ortiz and Manny and you getting all that offensive power. I mean, it's so huge to get wins. And, it's not even also the home runs. I mean, he's a doubles machine as well. And it's, I mean, when the year after Ortiz retired, obviously there was a huge void to fill and they didn't. They had a season where they struggled to hit home runs. They struggled to score runs. And then obviously the next year he came in, they won the World Series. And I think if this team's going to be successful the entire season, obviously JD Martinez is going to have to have to put up the numbers for them to continue to win at a high clip. And I personally, I think he's going to have a great year. I don't think he's going to have an awful year. And the show is going to be is if he opts out at the end of the year, and if that becomes the case, where do the Red Sox go after that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. While we're on the outfielders front, I've got to talk about Aaron Judge, which has been a big struggle for Yankees fans this week. Once again, dealing with some sort of mysterious oblique side injury. They never get into specifics. It's like trying to find out what's going on with James Booknight. You get nothing in like mysterious answers about what's happening. But I think it's a question for Yankee fans. You really have to think about long term if this is the guy, when I think he's got one more year on his deal before you'd have to look at extending him and re-signing him. If he can't stay on the field, it's tough. It's year after year. I know he had the fluky one where he got hit by a pitch, but going forward, if this guy's going to just miss chunks of games, I mean, he's got a freak body, things like that happen, but it's definitely something I think you're going to have to take into mind going forward. So we got Yankee fans on. Throw in the chat what you think about Aaron Judge here, because I think it's a tough call for them. I don't think it's as easy as it would have been. I know he's kind of become the face of this team, but if he's not going to be able to stay on the field, it's going to be tough to make one of those 10-year deals or what for him.
Well, can I ask you guys a question on that real quick?
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking what you just said, Jared. Like, Steven just went through, like, the Red Sox trading a generational talent.
Yeah.
When they didn't have to. I couldn't – I mean, I think he's got a freak body, so things are going to – like, you have to take 50 home runs with him falling apart half the time. But I'm like – I think Yankee fans would lose their mind if they let him walk.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think there are some who like have been progressively getting more and more upset about the injury factor, in that, they already hate Stanton, who's kind of that guy who's also got that freak body who gets random injuries from time to time and can't stay on the field. So when you've got two of those guys, it gets a bit tough. But I do see your point, because I think from a Boston perspective, it was really tough for fans to have to deal with Mookie Betts. And Steven, you could talk to that there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was tough, but I mean, it was sadly, I don't agree with the move, but it was a move that probably had to be done. I mean, they got into that point with the luxury tax where they just kept spending way too much, and it's not even just the money. You start losing draft picks, and it was affecting the farm system, and I don't know. It got to a point where they had done so much damage that they couldn't keep them, but. When you're talking about Judge, I mean, I think that kind of comes into play too. You're starting to see some of these big market teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees worry about the luxury tax. Yeah. I mean, the Yankees did it this year. They cut salary. They traded Ottavino to the Red Sox. That's a thing that the Yankees are probably going to be looking out for. And it's a guy that's injury prone. And, do you want to sink a lot of money into a guy like that? And then he's on the DL for, half the year. These are big questions, and the Yankees are going to have some serious moves to make, or serious signings to make as the year goes on.
If you told me, a few years ago that the three of us in this chat here would be the Mets that are going out there and spending all the money, I would never have believed you.
I got so much money now. I don't know what to do with myself. We may buy the Red Sox and the Yankees after this, just to keep things moving.
Nice conglomerate there. But what have your thoughts been, on that Lindor signing? I think it was something when you made that trade, you pretty much had to lock him down to make it worth it there. Were you okay with the deal they gave him in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think even if he was a rental, I don't think it would have been an awful trade if they were really going for it. But again, I hate to be like the homer biased person. If they were really going for it for 1 year, I would have tried to sign Springer and then worry about 6 years from now.
Yeah.
And really gone for it this year. They needed that type of personality. I got to tell you, the amount of balls hit up the middle that they just would never get to. He is a filthy defensive shortstop.
He really is.
And we've been blessed with that for, a long time ago. Reyes was a very good defensive shortstop. Ordonez was a ridiculous shortstop. He couldn't hit, but he was a ridiculous shortstop. I think they had to resign him, not even for what they gave up. I don't know how you could miss on the free agents they missed on and then not see this through.
Yeah.
And like the public relations nightmare itself would have been devastating. I was shocked by the amount of money because I just never thought about that. But when the deal got signed in San Diego, like you kind of knew like that's where the shortstop market was going.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad we can afford to actually pay someone that much money.
Yeah, and again, as a Yankee fan, it's crushing me to see you guys with the defensive whiz at shortstop now, compared to Gleyber Torres, who is he's got the talent, but he's not a shortstop. He's feels like he commits an error every game here. It's been tough. He had one the other day that cost him the game. So it's just another thing that, I saw our friend here on Twitter, Christopher Smith, tweeted at me that, to make sure I quoted him on it, that this was his least likable Yankee team since the 80s. And it's interesting. And I could, just from being a Yankees fan and seeing what Yankees Twitter has been like so far to start this season, it seems like the tides are turning a little early for me. I wasn't so sure I'd expect it. I feel like since day one, Stanton's been a target. I guess somewhat understandably, given the contract and stuff. I'm a huge Stanton fan. I still believe in him. Think he could do it. But this fan base, and you know them, you strike out twice in a game and they're ready to boo you your third at bat. It's going to get interesting this year if they don't pick things up, and you should expect them to. I mean, it's pretty much a clone team of what you've seen from them the past few years. Again, it's going to be a lot of home runs, and that's going to be how they score. But if they keep going through some of these cold streaks like they have been to start the season, it's really going to be interesting. Steven, in terms of the Red Sox, another guy I think I was curious to see how he's going to do this year was Devers. And again, another guy who had a big game today. How important do you think he is to that team? Because I think he's a big piece for them if they're going to be successful this year and heading into the future.
Oh, he's an important piece. I mean, he's, a great young talent. The only issue with Devers is what you're going to get from him defensively. He struggled. Like the first series, he struggled a little bit, but it seems like in the past 3 or 4 games, he's been making great plays. So he's really tough to judge. Even since they've called him up, I want to say 3 or 4, was it 4? Yeah, probably 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. I mean, that was his struggle. His struggle was defensively, and they didn't know where to put him because he has a great bat. But I mean, you can't have a third baseman making consistent errors and expect to win. So, yeah. I mean, that's the huge key with him. Obviously, we see today he hit 2 home runs himself. He's just such a great talent. I mean, if it comes down to it, if they got to move him to first base at some point, I think they're going to have to. I mean, it's tough. It would be tough to let him walk, and just because you say, oh, he can't. He's a liability in the field. Just put him at first, see how he works there, and hope he works out there, and then you keep his bat in the lineup.
Matt, I've got to see one of the trends I saw this week with the Mets opening up was some hate thrown towards Luis Rojas' way. What are your thoughts on him? I know a lot
guilty as charged. The biggest problem it started with is, anyone that's followed the Mets at all or Jacob deGrom, the guy, and I know Verducci put out a ridiculous story today about how Jacob deGrom is just unlucky. He does get the run support that everyone else does, and it was the most insane thing. Game 1 start last year, frankly, the fact that they didn't make the playoffs when everybody made the playoffs, that team is crazy. And then to go into opening day and say you're starting ace, who's like the best pitcher of the generation, uniformly agreed to. I know some Yankees fans disagree, but I don't think it's true. He's got 100 pitch limit, and you take him out after 70 pitches in 6 innings, and he could have, And again, I think, the bullpen's tough right now. I actually think Castro and May and Diaz will be fine.
Yeah.
Because they throw smoke. So I think at some point it'll work out. But opening day, let the guy throw at least into the 7th inning if he's cruising like that. So that's how it started. And then he's just done really odd things. Jeff McNeil batting 7th for some reason. He's our best natural hitter. He's batting 7th. Some of the lineup stuff is just, and I know to some extent they're handcuffed now with this 3 pitcher or 3 batter minimum, right? So they try to alternate the lefty and righty. I don't know how to look at it yet, because I do think some of the big discussion beyond not just free agents, because the Mets were going to use the Cohen money on analytics, right? So they brought in a huge analytics staff. A lot of their front office people are people that came out of the Boston analytics system. I think they're overthinking things sometimes. So over 162 games, I guess the analytics will work themselves out. It's just frustrating. I really think they should be 4-1 right now. And the fact that they're 2-3 is just, I think people just, we're tired of waiting for a winner, and there's big expectations. When you give someone a $350 million contract, there's big expectations.
Yeah.
So
Definitely, yeah. No, and especially when it comes to DeGrom, I feel like if you are going to beat him, it's going to be on a fluky shot like he got by that guy in the Marlins that I hadn't heard of.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you get beat by that, like so be it. But you don't want to be losing when you're taking him out after 6 innings or what, and less than 70 pitches.
And if you think about it, like 2015 again was a great year, and the pitching staff was healthy that year. DeGrom theoretically could have had 3 Cy Youngs already, and he's like going to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And not get anything more than 1 deep playoff run off of this career would be a shame.
Yeah.
Like you're just wasting his prime. So I think that's where a lot of the frustration is too.
In terms of your manager, Steven, happy to have Cora back at the helm there.
I love Cora. I know a lot of people have issues with Cora and whatever, what happened in Houston, but and he deserves some of it. He deserves the bashing. I mean, what happened is a big problem, and what happened in Houston. But I mean, I think he makes such a huge difference with this team. Obviously, last year was a big struggle with him not being there. They just weren't the same team. And I mean, I'm not saying they would have been a playoff team last year. I think they weren't built to win, but I think he makes the difference. I think they were even talking about it with guys like Devers and stuff like that. You see him go out there and he kind of gets on Devers when he makes mistakes. He gets out there, he has him working a lot, practicing and all that. I think, you have to have a good manager to win in baseball. We all know that. Yeah. But I think, if they didn't bring back Cora and they brought back someone else, or they brought in someone else new, I don't know. I don't know if they would be as successful this season. I think it would be a huge struggle for them.
Yeah, and when it comes to Aaron Boone, I've always been a fan, but I know, Matt, you talked about the Mets diving into the analytics. I feel like Boone has kind of become a puppet of Cashman in the front office there, kind of doing whatever they say in terms of analytics to the point where he's not really controlling the game as much as you'd like to see him do.
Well, one of the weird things on that, too, on the Mets side of things, Carlos Beltran got such a bad rap with how he left the Mets when he was a stud for them.
Yeah.
He had some of the best seasons. And I think there was some I don't know if it's survivor's guilt or like real remorse and happiness when they hired him. And then when that fell through and the same stuff with Cora was happening and then he was just gone. And it was like, well, we had talked about Rojas before, but I'm not sure he was ever the first choice.
Yeah.
And, everything with Mickey Callaway that came out most recently, I'm glad he's not in that job anymore.
Yeah.
But they didn't fire Mickey Callaway the year they should have, and then fired him after he got like a Kevin Ollie 2013 type season out of them where he got all these young players to play out of their minds. So it's just been a weird thing. Now, I was not a Brody Van Wagenen fan. I thought he did a lot of really stupid things as GM. So I think, again, there's some tying the Rojas hiring to that part of what the team was. It's still like a last connection to the old
regime there. Yeah.
Yeah. The old ownership group.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point you bring up there. So I gotta ask both of you while we've got, Yankees, Red Sox, Mets on here, which one of you two hates the Yankees more?
Oh, I do. I have to. It has to be, right?
Yeah. I hate them really bad. But there's something I don't know. It's it's not as much hatred between the Yankees and Red Sox now, but I do remember 15 years ago, it was out of control.
Yeah.
And we weren't really part of that. Although I almost became part of that because the Mets were playing a couple interleague series at Fenway's and I got there and was pretty obnoxious. But it is, I think it's not on that level, but we much more hate Philly and more recently the Nationals than the Yankees.
Yeah. And I feel like Yankees, Red Sox, when you talk about the peak, I thought it was starting to come back a little bit when you had that last playoff series, when you had Aaron Judge playing New York on the boombox heading out of the stadium. And then, the Red Sox kind of tanked from there. But it's a rivalry I'm hoping picks up some steam again, because when they're both good, it's a lot of fun.
I think the struggle is, though, I think a lot of these players don't share that same passion that they did 15 years ago where they hate each other. I think a lot of these guys really like each other, outside of baseball. So it's tough for them to get into in the mid 2000s there where, we're having fights, every other series it feels like. And I don't think it's like that anymore. I don't think really in sports, I don't think it's like that anymore.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
It's sports, because basketball is the same way. Even football, like when you watch the old stuff, like when you hear Lawrence Taylor talk, like he was legitimately trying to injure people.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers had those or the Saints had like bounties on hurting people. These guys all hang out afterwards.
Yeah.
And,
swapping jerseys on the court and the field.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's like, yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah, no, it is. I think for the fans, though, I think there's still that hatred and that. And one thing I'm curious, especially now with the Mets really taking that next step, is to see if that Yankee Mets rivalry starts to pick up again. Because I think Yankee fans are sitting here being like, the Mets, not that they're taking their spotlight here, but it's like they're taking some of the Yankee way. They're spending money, like they're putting getting those high profile free agents, while the Yankees are like all of a sudden trying to pinch pennies, like stay under the luxury tax. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Mets are playing better, especially if they start to like surpass the Yankees and are playing at a higher level, to see if that rivalry picks up a bit more.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen until the Mets win it all, or the Mets make a World Series appearance and the Yankees don't make the playoffs. Yeah. And then when there's a Yankees fan saying the Mets are getting there because they're spending the money, that's when you're going to see this like issue come up. Until then, like we're the little brother. So until they prove that just having a checkbook, because a lot of teams have had checkbooks and not used them well, Yankees included, right?
Yeah.
Like in the last 20 years, there's been like one really good Yankees team based off of spending.
Money. Yeah.
So honestly, if we win the World Series this year, I'll be happy for another 20 years. But I think that it's going to take they're going to have to get someone else, and they don't have a team for that yet. I'm hoping in like July, maybe they make some moves that, better center fielder, another pitcher. But, the other thing they have Lugo coming back to the pen soon. Syndergaard coming back is always fun because he's just obnoxious and talks a lot. So I think they got to stay in it. But listen, baseball is always better when both New York teams, LA and Boston, are good, because those are the only cities that really count, are truly passionate about it. Yeah. And that's been missing, although the Dodgers obviously won, but I'm not even sure how much people on the West Coast care about that.
Yeah. No, I think you make a good point there. So if all of our teams can be in it this year, I think that makes for a lot of fun, gives us a fun baseball season and make things just a lot more exciting. I guess as we wrap here, if you had to have a takeaway from the first week or so of games here for your team, Matt, what would you say for the Mets? And then Steven, you can go from there.
Just get a freaking hit. We need RBIs. So I think the Mets, like I said, need to stay around 500 until they get their full staff back. I think it's a positive sign that Pete Alonso's hitting pretty well and isn't in the strikeout slump he was in last year. So we'll see what happens.
I guess for me, it would be the Red Sox keep the offense going, because my fear is, and going into this week playing the Twins and the White Sox, is, I hope the bats don't go dead. And, we just wasted all these runs on the Orioles and Tampa, and then you go and you start playing some really, really good teams and it goes flat. I mean, I don't know. I don't trust the pitching enough. I haven't seen enough from the pitching to know if we could trust them to go out there and give you a win, good outings every time. So I guess, obviously they're not going to keep it up at this clip with what JD and Devers are doing, but as long as they consistently hit and score runs, I think they should be all set. Yeah,
and then my takeaway is kind of harp on what I was saying earlier. I want to see some hits with runners in scoring position, not just home runs. And it'll be interesting to see if this Yankee team can do it, because even the guys that are the so-called contact guys have been struggling too. DJ LeMahieu's gotten off to a cold start. Aaron Hicks hasn't been great. Clint Frazier has been okay, but it's going to be interesting for them if they're going to try to slug it out every single game. They've got the power and they'll be able to do that from time to time, especially when you start, getting away from these opening week games when you really could face, bottom end of the rotation guys. But it's going to be interesting to see if they can, this team, I just am afraid it can't put 2 or 3 hits together in a row, which is what you need to win, especially come playoff time. And it's failed them year after year here when they, rely on a home run late to tie it or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out.
You got to play some small ball, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see that a little bit. And maybe no more Jay Bruce. Matt, you've gotten the Jay Bruce fun. So
the first time around was okay. The second time around was not.
Yeah, no, I think Yankee fans learned that. What are we, a week in here, and they've realized the Jay Bruce experiment isn't that much fun. They've already been trying out Mike Tauchman at first base. They showed some clips of that, so they're trying to do whatever they can to avoid the Jay Bruce fun. But I appreciate you guys hopping on. I think it's a lot of fun. We'll stick and try to do this throughout the season here and have some fun with this. Maybe bring on some extra guests here. No, I was talking to everyone's favorite UConn guy, John Fanta. We're gonna get him on. We're gonna get him on soon. He's gonna talk about some
the Cleveland Spiders.
Yeah. Whatever they're gonna be called now. And then I told him he's got to talk about all of his players that have lost to our teams. So we'll have some fun with that one.
I would have fun with that.
Yeah. So we've got some fun stuff coming up. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight and enjoy the week of baseball. It's here and it's back. So enjoy it, everyone.
Go Sox.
Go Yankees. Have a good one, guys.
Later, guys.